Hey everyone, Matt Winkler here from Umpqua Feather Merchants. In front of me, I have every single new fly pattern for the 2026 release. And today we're going to do a quick little deep dive into every single pattern we have coming out this year. I'm not going to waste any of your time. I'm going to dive right into it. The first category we're going to take a look at is dry flies and terrestrials. The first one we're going to look at is the CDC Sparkle Dun from Craig Mathews. If you're familiar with Craig at all, you know the Sparkle Dun. It is not a new fly pattern at all, but what Craig wanted to do, and what he's done for many years, but we finally did on a commercial pattern, is change the wing to CDC. No other changes to the fly other than that, but that one simple change makes this fly phenomenal. And it's not a little bit of CDC either. We went pretty big on this. It has a nice, big quality CDC wing that'll help this fly float forever and just continue that kind of natural aesthetic that Craig loves on all of his patterns. This one comes in a blue winged olive color, PMD, and a green drake to cover pretty much any western mayfly hatch you come across. Next one on the board is the Infinity Stone from Aaron Freed. This is kind of a new take on a salmon fly, dry fly. The profile on this fly is a little bit different than a lot of things you see out there. It's pretty compact in terms of its silhouette, so it's something that the fish haven't seen a ton of. On the underside of it, it has a very nice segmented body of stacked foam, so it's going to float really, really nice and give a really realistic silhouette from the underside. On the top, what you don't see is a ton of flash. This fly is very subtle. The colors are what they need to be, but there's not any extra flash on this guy. And the wing is composed of macrame and elk. So that combined with the foam is going to give you a fly that floats like crazy. This will hang a dry underneath or a dropper underneath it, no problem whatsoever. Comes in the three colorways you want: salmon fly, golden stone, and squala to cover, all those stone flies. Very, very good, kind of different profiled salmon fly dry to have in your box. Next one on the board is the Mangler. This one comes to us from Taylor Scott. He's a new fly attire for us this year. This is a great, great little stonefly dry. Unlike the one we just looked at, this is a much smaller, more delicate pattern. This one is tied to imitate yellow sallies and nemoras, which are basically the small black stoneflies you see in late winter and early spring. So these two color combos here, you got, your kind of often overlooked stoneflies. Very, very good pattern. It's got an elk wing, nice legs on it, little bit of foam on the top, so it floats really well, but also very delicate, small dry fly to imitate those little stones. Next on the board is the Sparkle Dun Pheasant Tail, and I'm going to kind of combine these two, the Sparkle Dun Pheasant Tail and the Sparkle Dun X Caddis, both from Craig Mathews. These are great, great flies because we kind of worked in conjunction with Patagonia. If you haven't heard about the book yet, Yvonne Chenard, Craig Mathews, and Mauro Mazzo, they came out with a book called Pheasant Tail Simplicity. It's kind of going back a little bit and going to the roots of fly fishing, and it's a book about all flies tied with the use of pheasant tail. And we were lucky enough that we were able to work on that project with Patagonia. We produced an assortment of all the flies in the book with them that it will be for sale through Patagonia, and these two flies are featured in that book and now are going to be featured in our catalog assortment. Both of the flies stay true to the original pattern. The main change you're going to see is the abdomen goes from dubbing to pheasant tail. It's wrapped up, and then it has Craig's kind of style of counter ribbing it with the thread to kind of lock in that durability, and that pheasant tail just gives it a very, very nice buggy, natural look to both of these flies. Next one, we're going to jump kind of into the terrestrial category. This is the Cruel Summer Cicada from Kurt Vest. He has a new tire for us this year. He's out of Utah. I got to say, first and foremost, that Kurt is a phenomenal tire, and working with foam is out of this world. This is his first fly with us, the Cicada. And this fly, again, is just true to his style. It's simple, but the details that you get out of this fly when you get up close to it are next level. The taper on the abdomen, the way he takes the wing and kind of locks it in so the wing tapers the same contour as the abdomen. Each leg is knotted at the right length. very, very loaded with details. It's tied on a jigged hook, so it keels nice. And then the other thing is you get a really, really good hook gap out of that fly. A lot of times with big, drives with a lot of foam, you lose your hook gap. This fly is not one of those flies. So it's got everything you need it's kind of a small package. It's available in size 10 and 12. It imitates, your annual cicada, which you see, every year on a lot of our western rivers. Very, very good fly if you're fishing one of those rivers where you run across cicadas. Last one we're going to talk about in the terrestrial category is the red ass ant. This one comes from us from another new tyer, Adam Deal. He's out of Tennessee, and he designed this fly for the Henry's Fork. Fish in very technical water where very selective fish sipping, ants, ants on the water. So this fly is tied with no weight. It's kind of an epoxy-bodied styled fly. The abdomen and the thorax are balls of thread coated in epoxy. And what kind of really sets this fly out and gives it its name, the back half of the abdomen is coated in red wire, so it gives it obviously that red ass. And then it's finished off with a couple turns of a soft hackle feather. So this fly being unweighted and in a soft hackle style, you could fish it under a dry and let it sit in the surface film. You could fish it down deep. You can swing it through a run just like any other soft hackle. And this fly is available in black and a honey color as well. And it's tied on a 2457, very strong stout hook, hold up to a really big trout. Moving on into the next category, I'm going to lump eggs, worms, and scuds, which is one of our categories, and lake flies into one, just because we only have a couple flies to look at. But the first one in the eggs, worms, scud category is the mirror mysis from Matt Howell. He's another new tyer from us out of Colorado. This is a really, really great, mysis shrimp imitation. First thing, it's put on the new 201R from Tiemco. So very, very good quality hook. The next thing about this fly is everything on it is tied in a way to make the fly translucent. The thread is mono, the abdomen is D-rib and clear, the head is epoxy, and the feelers and antenna are pearl midge flash, and then he's got the nice prominent black eyes that are so distinct on a mysis shrimp. So in combination with that good quality hook, everything on it being transparent, it matches the naturals very, very well. And another great thing about this fly is you can get it down to a size 22. It does come in 18 through 22, so that really, really small size would be great on your super technical tailwaters. Next fly up, moving into the lake flies, is the jigged leather leech. This is one of my patterns that I've been tying for many, many years. I really like using the leather leech material. I've been doing it for over 10 years at this point, and like I said, this fly I've been tying for many, many years. It was one of the first flies I actually tied with this material, and this fly is just a no-nonsense, super versatile pattern that you could do a little bit of everything with. It started out as a carp fly, and then it's turned into basically a little bit of everything. It's tied in a way so it sinks very, very fast. The tail is very slim with little resistance. The body is epoxy, and it's just a tungsten slotted bead. So it sinks quick, sinks bead down with the tail up, and just basically looks like a leech when it's sinking. It's available in multiple colors, the black with a fluorescent orange bead on it, and then there's black, purple, olive, and brown, all with just a straight matte black bead. And it's available in 3 sizes as well. Very, very versatile fly. Next one up to finish out the lake fly category is the menthol midge. This is another fly from myself. This fly was honestly kind of designed around this hook. It's tied on the new XT250, and it gives you a really, really long shank, very sturdy hook. It's been, proven on pyramid, the wire that's in here. It's not going to bend out on any small fish. And the one thing I didn't like about a lot of commercial chironomid patterns is they usually use a big bead, a lot of times a big white bead, and the abdomen and thoraxes are just tied in a way that they're unproportionally thick. So this fly, I eliminated the bead altogether. It's completely unweighted, and the thorax and the abdomen are tied with nothing but thread. And then the abdomen has a double wire rib of red and silver to give you the contrast of a little, the blood, and then the silver with a little bit of the the gas is building up. And then the thorax, I run a copper cheek on each side and a single piece of pearl mylar over the back, just to give it a little bit of a shine. And the gills are dental floss. And the name Menthol Midge is a little bit of a nod to Rick Takahashi. When I first got into stillwater fishing many, many years ago, his crystal chironomid was one that I looked at quite a bit. And I watched him do a whole bunch of demos way back in the day. And he always used dental floss for the gills. And when I wanted to go out and buy some of that material, the only one I could find was mint flavored. So one box of that stuff will last you a lifetime, so I still have it to this day. So the name Menthol Midge is a little nod to Rick Takahashi there with the dental floss gills. Moving on to the nymphs, midges, and emerger category. The first one we're going to take a look at is the 1 o'clock midge from Dylan Gonzalez. He is quickly becoming known for his super technical tailwater flies tied to very, very small sizes, and this fly is no exception. He designed this fly specifically to target very selective trout during middle of the day, hence the name 1 o'clock midge. When fish are ultra selective, they oftentimes don't want to eat under bright high sun, and he says this fly here is kind of the key to getting them to eat. It is tied very small. It's available down to a size 24 in 2 colors, black and brown, and the fly is very, very slim, thread with a single wire rib for the abdomen. The legs are ultra fine, and he has a very unique way of tying the wings out of mylar that's trimmed to a very, very narrow taper. It just gives you a phenomenal adult midge silhouette. You can fish this honestly however you want. Selectively fish rising fish, put it behind a dry, fish it deep. But Dylan says he prefers to fish this fly in the top 2/3 of the water column when he's fishing this bug. Next one up is the 24K stone from Joshua Ryan. He's another new tire for us out of Colorado. This is a phenomenal golden stone nymph. The way he ties this fly, there's a lot of unique detail in here that you don't see on most nymphs. The abdomen on this fly is a Polish weave. And then what he does is underneath that, the abdomen is coated in mylar so that when he weaves the D-rib over it, you get basically this shine, translucency that comes through. And then the top is darkened, so you get a dark top, a little bit lighter underside with that shine that comes through. And then after that, most of the materials on here are natural, which makes it look very good in the water. Tails and legs are biots. The wing case is natural turkey, and there's a CDC collar on there. So in the water, it looks just like a natural. Nice size range to this fly. We carry it in 8 through 14, so you can get them big, you can get them small. Just overall, great golden stone nymph. Next one up is the Big Net Perdigon from Greg Garcia. Well, we are super excited to have some new flies from Greg this year, and this one is no exception. This is his take on a Perdigon, which is a little bit unique and not, there's some things on here that aren't seen in many other flies in this category. Number one, it's tied on the 201R. Very, very good hook. If you know anything about Greg, he's probably used and sold more 200Rs than anybody, and now he's onto the 201. And this fly gives a nice, very slim profile. The tail and the abdomen, very slim. And then when you get up to the thorax is really where you start to see the differences in this fly. What he does is he uses a brown tungsten bead, and then the wing case is a single strand of white flashabou pulled over, and it's pulled over the front of the bead. So you get this kind of very white contrast coming over the bead. It's just a look that the fish probably haven't seen very much of, if at all. And he kept it very simple with the skews on this fly. It's available in 2 colors, and he just says light and dark. And it's available in an 18 through a 22. Next one up on the board is the CDJ Nymph. This comes from another new tire from us, Jesse Falingo out of Pennsylvania. And if you like CDC, you are going to love this fly. This fly is made out of almost entirely CDC. The tail and the entire body are made out of CDC. The body has a little bit of dubbing mixed into it, but it's all encompassed together, so you get the natural movement of the CDC in there. And the one thing you'll notice about this fly is the absolute lack of flash. When he set out to design this fly, he wanted a fly that was very, very natural and moved like crazy in the water for a nymph. And he knocked both of those out of the park. This fly is available in 3 colors, brown, kind of a natural tan, and an olive. And with those 3 colors, you could imitate almost anything you want in the water, whether it's mayfly nymphs, caddis, small crayfish with the brown. You get into the olive color. This thing could be a scud. It could be a small damsel nymph. So with the 3 colors, with the lack of flash and the natural materials, you could imitate almost anything you want. Next one up on the board is Conti's Confidence Nymph. This is, I think, our 3rd release from Marco Conti out of Italy. He is a phenomenal tyer and knows how to use natural materials almost better than anybody. And this fly features an oversized bead, and pretty much everything else on it is natural. The tail is CDC or CDL, the abdomen is wrapped biot, and the thorax is a natural hare's mask dubbing that he actually makes himself. And the only thing on it that isn't natural is the little pearl wing buds that's sticking out. And the way he ties them in, he ties half the thorax, ties in the wing, and then finishes the thorax so that those wing buds are actually coming out of the thorax. Very, very good dropper. It's available in 12 through 16, and with that big oversized bead, it's going to sink quick. It's going to be excellent underneath or behind a dry. It's available in tan, brown, olive, and black. Next up is another fly from Greg Garcia, the tungsten Darth Baetis. If you're familiar with that fly, we didn't really do any changes to it other than add a very small tungsten bead. So it's in the same colors, sizes, skews that you're used to, now with the addition of a tungsten bead. And to keep it kind of symmetric across the line, we added a nice black nickel tungsten bead to all the colors. Gives it a nice classy kind of technical look to it. And yeah, anybody that likes the Darth Baetis, you're going to love that fly. Next up is the Jigged Deep Cleaner. John Bond, when he designed this fly several years ago, kind of knocked it out of the park. The Deep Cleaner is part mop, part Pat's rubber leg, and that fly has done very, very well for us. And in this year, he came to us and said, hey, he wants it on a jig hook. So we did just that. We didn't really change much to the fly. We wanted to keep it as it was. We just put it on a jigged hook with a nice big tungsten bead on it. The same 2 colors, kind of the coffee and the golden stone color, but now you can get this fly in a jigged hook. Next up is the Firecracker Caddis. This is the 2nd fly for us coming from Ryan Broder in the Firecracker series. The first one was the stone. Now we have the caddis. He has a very, very nice technical way of tying flies. This is tied on with a jig bomb, so you're going to get a very good heavy bead with a quick sink rate. The way it's tied, it's very tight and compact. You're not going to have much drag in the water, so you're going to get a quick sink. And then it has that trademark kind of firecracker collar on there, catches the fish's attention. This thing would be great in a Euro rig, under a bobber, under a dry. You can do pretty much anything you would want with that fly. Next up, kind of staying in the caddis range, we have Gene's Cased Caddis from Gene Hart. He's another new tyer for us. We actually have 2 patterns that we're going to take a look at. The first one is his Cased Caddis. What's really unique about this fly is where the head is on the insect, there's a small glass bead kind of locked right at the bend, and then there's a small coating of epoxy so that bead won't move. He's got some synthetic legs, and then the body is pheasant tail, and then it's locked together with glue. So you get a really nice, durable fly, and underneath that pheasant tail, he's got some lead, so it will sink even though it doesn't look like it has any weight. It is weighted. A very good representation of a natural cased caddis on this one. And then his second fly, the GH Special, is more of a net builder style caddis. Again, you could do basically anything you wanted with this. Euro, under a bobber, under a dry. Looks kind of just like a cased caddis. Got a nice bead on it, so it'll get down quick. Nice buggy legs. Overall, just a great, great caddis imitation. Next up is the Jefferstone. This one comes from us from Justin Britton. He's another new tyer for us out of California. What Justin did on this stonefly is quite outstanding. It's very, very realistic in a very fishable way. The details he packed on this are outstanding. Each and every leg is a knotted pheasant tail fiber. The way he tied the abdomen and the wing case, the abdomen is ribbed, and then when you get to the wing case, there's 3 distinct folds, which just give it a very, very realistic profile. And then on some of the ones, he's even colored the top of the bead so you get a distinct dark and light on there. In a nutshell, the Jefferstone is a fantastic, realistic fly that'll sink quick and you'll be able to fish it in tight little pockets. Next up is the Peas and Cream. This kind of finishes out the trilogy for Doug Ouellette. We have the Strawberries and Cream, the Peaches and Cream, and now the Peas and Cream. This is a colorway he's been fishing for many, many years. It's kind of a creamy color with a chartreuse rib, and he absolutely loves this color. He's been fishing it, like I said, for many years, and we decided to go ahead and pick this up to finish out that trilogy of flies for him. Next up is the Pheasant Tail Emerger from Craig Mathews. When Craig set out to design this fly, he basically wanted a fly that he could fish to very selective fish, and I think on this particular pattern, he knocked it out of the park. What he did on this fly is just very, very elegant, the way it's tied, very typical Craig style, natural materials, subdued, no flash. The colors that he chose match the naturals very, very well, with kind of an upright forward-facing wing of a mixed CDC and macrame, so it's going to float like crazy. Depending on how you grease this fly, you can get it to sit high in the column, low in the column. If you only grease the front of it, it'll sit, at an angle like a true emerger. A very, very good fly. Comes in several colors to match, most mayflies you'll come across. Next up is the Timmy Emerger from Charlie Craven. We've talked about this one a little bit so far, but we're going to feature it again. Fantastic bug from Charlie. Very realistic silhouette, very slim tail. Underbody is very, very buggy, and then the wing construction on this is really what kind of sets it apart. He's got 2 wings coming out each side, and then a fold over and a front wing, all tied out of macrame in mixed colors. Each color in the series has a different color combo for the wing, so they're all distinct. And what's really great about this fly is kind of how you dress the wings. You can get it to fish different ways. You can splay the wings out to the side, get more of a spinner presentation. You can take all of them and fold them up, almost get a kind of a parachute. You can pull the front one forward and just grease that wing, and it'll hang very low in the water. So it's very, very kind of customizable. Comes in a lot of colors and a ton of sizes. Very, very good fly. Next up is Utrera's Glow Loop Emerger. Lucas is a new tire for us, and I just got to give him a shout out. If you've never checked out his Instagram, I would go give it a shot. I think it's a Utrera fly tying. He's a phenomenal photographer and a phenomenal tire. He ties a lot of out-of-the-box style flies, and this one is kind of no exception. It's an emerger with very, very realistic tails. He actually goes into the detail of a 3 split tail, and then the wing is where it really kind of sets itself apart. It's a looped wing CDC with hackle, but what he does is on the outside of that loop wing, a single strand of mylar kind of encompasses, envelops the CDC, so that when that fly is in the water, no matter which way the light hits it, you get a little bit of a sparkle out of the wing. This fly comes in 3 colors, so it'll cover really any hatch you come across. You can modify it a little bit. Very, very good emerger fly from Lucas. Alrighty, we're gonna jump into the kind of the Jigged Euro category. First one up is from our very own Russell Miller. He's a new tire for us on staff. Phenomenal guy, if you don't know him. This is the hard body leech. Russ has been fishing this for many, many years, and he finally decided to send it into us, and we're very excited about it. This fly probably couldn't be any simpler, but one thing that he's done that I really haven't seen really too many people do it is the weight of this fly is a tungsten scud weight tied on the top of the shank, which is going to invert it, and then he coats it in nail polish and epoxy to give it a very hard, durable, glossy finish. And then the back of the fly is a single piece of micro pine squirrel. So the weight is going to do all the work for you. It's going to get it to sink, and that pine squirrel is just going to move and wiggle like it does, and basically this thing is going to look like a leech. This fly comes in 4 colors. One size, basically anything you need it to do, that fly will do. Next up is Keisha's Sugar Mama. She is another new tire for us, and we are super excited about this fly. It's a small little jigged, kind of mostly a minnow imitation, but the way she ties it almost exclusively out of natural materials is what really makes this fly shine. The tail is kind of a deceiver style with big hen feathers. There's a collar of marabou and then a final collar, a collar of mallard and then a final collar of marabou. So this fly has exceptional movement in the water, nice big bead, good hook. It's going to sink quick and just look just like a minnow swimming through the water. This fly comes in 4 colors, a black, a white, a rainbow, and an olive. So you'll find a color for any situation you find on the river. Very, very good fly. We're super happy to have Keisha on the Umpqua Sig Tire program. Next up is the May ICU from Norman MacTima. This is the predecessor to the ICU Midge, and this is a mayfly imitation that features the distinct mylar cheeks that were on the Midge pattern, a very nice CDC collar, slim tail and abdomen. This will be a great dropper or a fly in your Euro rig. Keep a lookout for this one in your fly shops. Next up is the Sunnyside Leech from Hans Mylan. This is kind of the next iteration of the Sunny Side Up. If you're familiar with that, his egg pattern, this is basically taking that, turning it into an egg-sucking leech. It has the same way he ties his egg with the jig bomb posted with the material wrapped around it to form the egg, and then what he's done is just tied some pine squirrel off of the back to give you a phenomenal, small, compact, egg-sucking leech that you can nymph with in various situations. This fly comes in various colors with a contrasting leech and an egg color, so you can find one for any situation you need. If you like Hans flies, you'll love this one. Next up is the Surefire Quilled Caddis from Kyle Parsons. He's a new tire for us, actually works here on staff at Umpqua, and in my opinion, this is a phenomenal caddis pattern. What he's done here is he set out to design a very natural caddis pattern, and I think he knocked it out of the park. This fly features a real peacock quill body, a collar of CDC mixed with natural dubbing, and then what he's done at the very back of it at the bend, he's incorporated a couple turns of a kind of a bright mylar depending on the color of the fly to give it a nice kind of hot spot in the water, something that the fish can see and key in on. And then after that, as it's in the water, everything else about the fly is just very, very natural. He kept it kind of clean with a nice black nickel bead on both colorways. You can get this in tan and chartreuse. Killer, killer fly. Next up is the Balanced Money Minnow. This is another fly from me. This fly started out as a fly for pyramid. I wanted something bigger in a minnow imitation that I could hang under an indicator. And most of the flies out there were just not really to my liking. So what I did with this, I just wanted to keep it super simple, but something that was definitively a minnow. So the tail is marabou, gives you a lot of movement. The body is Palmer chenille, and it's wrapped. As it's wrapped, each layer kind of folds on itself to give it a nice scaled appearance in the water. It gives it a really, really great shine. And then to finish it off, there's 3D eyes epoxied onto each side, so it gives it a very realistic look. The fly is tied as a true balanced fly, so there's a tungsten bead on a pin, so under an indicator it will hang horizontal, give you that nice kind of rocking jig motion as the waves moves the indicator up above. Very, very good fly, tied on a size 6, so it's a nice, sizable fly if you're looking for a bigger fish in those windy conditions. Next up is CD's Little Swinger. This comes to us from Corey D'Antonio, and he loves trout spay. It's one of his favorite things to do, and when he set out to design this fly, he kind of thought most flies were not really designed specifically for trout spay, and he wanted to change that. And what he did was design a small, compact fly that'll you'd be able to fish trout spay very well, and he kept it very, very simple. The underbody is mylar, so you get a little bit of flash. There's a mallard collar and then a final collar of marabou. So when this thing is in the water, there's nothing to really impede the movement of the fly. It's going to swim and move exactly how you would want a fly like this to fish. If you're into trout spay or want to get into it, I would highly recommend checking out this fly. Next up is the Jigged Micro Meat from Russell Miller. When Russ designed this fly, he wanted a small, compact, heavy jigged minnow that had a touch of realism to it. And what he did is he put the bead on there, but he kind of hit it a little bit back, and then the throat of the fly covers the bead. So when it's kind of in the water, the bead kind of shines through a little bit, but it's not very visible. And he used a nice contrasting color, so it gives it a little bit of a pop on the underside of the fly, but you don't see that big kind of bulbous bead on the front. And then he added some small 3D eyes on the very front to add that touch of realism. Pine squirrel across the back. A very, very good, quick sinking fly that you'll be able to Euro nymph with, or streamer fish with, however you want to fish this fly. Comes in 4 colors, all natural. Very, very good fly for those situations. Next up is JK's Mob Scene. This one comes from us from Justin Carnes out of Indiana. He's a new tire for us. Very, very excited to have him on board and have this fly as a new launch this year. This is a pretty big streamer. It comes in around 4.5 inches, articulated, but there's some things on this fly that he's done that make it kind of stand out. First thing is there's a really, really dense core in there with some dubbing to build up some shoulders, but then it's collared with marabou, so it's going to give it a ton of movement. The head, instead of adding 3D eyes, he used just flat stick-on eyes to cut out the weight, and then he kind of coated the front or the top and the bottom with Softex, so the dubbing kind of keeps its shape and will swim true in the water. And then to weight this fly, instead of adding a hidden cone or wrapped lead or anything like that, he keel weighted it with lead on the bend of the front hook. So when it hits the water, it's going to keel every time, swim nice and straight. And I spent some time on the water with this fly last fall, and the action you can get out of this fly is very, very nice. On a dead pause, you can get this thing to almost turn 180 degrees as you pop it through the water. Casts very nice, swims nice and straight and true due to that keel weight. Very, very good streamer if you like fishing a little bit bigger fly. Comes in olive black and a nice tan white version. Next up is the Reservoir Dog from Daryl Eakins. We get to see a bait fish pattern from Daryl, and I'm really excited about this fly. When designing this fly, he wanted a streamer that could be fished on all the way down to a 5 weight. So what he's done is he's cut all of the weight out of this fly. There's no internal lead, there's no bead, there's no cone. He's even tied it with synthetic jungle cock eyes, so there's no 3D eyes or epoxy on the head. It's an articulated fly, but the front half is tied on a shank, so you don't even have a hook under here, which does a couple things. Again, it cuts out a little bit of the weight, but it also cuts out the drag on the underside. So with this fly, since it is completely unweighted, you can fish it really slow and give it nice pops, and you're gonna get a really nice kind of bob and weave action out of this as the head can wiggle back and forth. And again, since it is unweighted, you can fish this on an intermediate line in things like in lakes, and you're not gonna have to worry about fishing the fly too fast, where it's gonna sink out of the zone. And then if in moving water, if you just fish it on a sink tip, you'll be able to let that fly line sink and get the fly down to where you want it to go. So this fly is very, very versatile. You can use it in a lot of different situations, a lot of different rod weights, a lot of different sink rates of fly lines itself. So very, very versatile fly. Comes in a bunch of colors. You'll find one to suit your need. Next up is the Tweaker from Fletcher Sam's. He's a new tire for us out of Georgia. He specializes in kind of warm water, out of the box species. And this fly was specifically designed for catching largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, but throwing into the nastiest cover you could. And what he's done here is pretty unique. It's an articulated fly. The front of the fly is just tied on a shank, and then the hook is on the back. So what that does is it puts the hook right about the middle of the fly. So anywhere the fish eats the fly, he's gonna get that hook. Second thing is big deer hair collar almost acts as kind of a semi-weed guard for this fly. Next thing is there's 2 dumbbells on this fly. Obviously the eyes are dumbbells, and then there's a second pair hidden on the hook. So when this fly hits the water, it's going to invert immediately and sink quick. So by inverting it so quickly, you can throw this thing over logs, over rocks. It's going to always fish hook up. You can literally drag it over the structure, then it'll sink quick. The big deer hair head's gonna push water, move like crazy. The articulation is gonna give a lot of action to the tail, which is a piece of Magnum rabbit zonker. So you're gonna get a ton of movement out of this fly and be able to throw it into some very, very nasty cover. This fly is available in 3 colors. In one size, it is a 2.0, but it's a kind of a misleading 2.0. It's a short shank wide gap hook, so it's not an extremely large hook. But what you get out of that is a really good hook gap that, anytime a fish eats that, there's no doubt you're gonna get them hooked up on that. Next category we're gonna jump into is the warm water category. We got 2 flies to look at in here, and they're actually both from Matt Bennett. The first one is the Carpet Bomb. Matt's been tying this fly for many, many years. And what he did with this fly is an exceptional small crayfish / dragonfly nymph. He's got oversized dumbbell eyes, which are gonna give you a slow sink rate, but they're wide, so when it hits the water, it's always gonna be riding hook up. There's a lot of materials in here that are just gonna give it a lot of movement with subtle line strips while it's in the water. The underside is dubbed with a dubbing that has micro legs in it. So as it sinks, it's gonna trap a little bit of water. It's gonna give it a realistic profile. There's an Ozark colorway, which is tan and blue. Looks like a little molting crayfish. 2 very, very good colorways in this fly. Great carp fly. I would definitely check it out if you like carp fishing. Next up from Matt is the Rio Getter. This one is purpose built for Rio Grande cichlids. This fly is very small. It looks like a little micro carp fly, but again, designed for those cichlids. So you can get this all the way down to a size 14. Very small dumbbells, so it sinks light, not to spook the fish. Very natural, some rubber legs on there, marabou for movement. It comes in 2 colors. And another great thing about this fly is, since it is so small, it could work as a carp fly in a pinch, or even a stonefly, a large caddis. If you wanted to hang it under an indicator, you could catch trout on this without any issue. I would definitely check this one out. Very, very versatile multi-species fly. All right, we're gonna jump into our last category, that's saltwater flies. The first one up is the booby toad. This one comes to us from Gary Merriman. He is the innovator of the tarpon toad, and what we did on this is, talking to Gary, is we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. All we did was come out with a toad that floated. There was a lot of anglers that were asking for that. I reached out to Gary, and he's actually been fishing this very fly for many, many years. So it was a no-brainer. Again, we just used high quality booby eyes to give it a nice kind of realistic finish to the fly, and everything out the back is just what you would expect from a tarpon toad. It comes in 2 colors, chartreuse and black and purple. Next up is the contraband floating crab. If you do any permit fishing or even hear about saltwater fishing, I'm sure you've heard of the sargassum problem, the floating weeds that have kind of plagued the Caribbean for quite a while now. And a lot of anglers have figured out fishing floating crabs is kind of work around in those tough conditions. And what Drew Chicone did on this one is he took his contraband crab, turned it into a floating crab with a nice big thick foam lip. So it's very similar to a gurgler. You get all of the detail of the crab. The foam is going to float the fly, and then you can basically fish it dead drift, let it sit on the surface. You can work it like a little gurgler, pop it, swim it, however you want to fish this fly on the surface. You've got a lot of options. Comes in 3 colors, 2 sizes. It does come in a 2 and a 1.0. So that 2 is a great flat size. He fishes a lot of that size even for bonefish, but that, the 2 for bonefish permit, it goes up to a 1.0, which will cover you for tarpon as well. It's on a very good quality hook. So if you're looking for a floating crab, I would definitely take a look at that one. Next up is the Fry Candy from Josh Smitherman. This is about as universal of a fly pattern as you can get. This fly is tied almost entirely out of craft fur, so you're going to get an insane amount of movement, natural translucency out of the material. It's tied on a Gamakatsu SL12S 1X short. If you're familiar with that hook, it is a no-joke hook. So this fly might look small and like it's a trout fly, but not at all. You can catch anything that swims on this in freshwater, saltwater, whether it's a walleye, largemouth bass, striper, snook, tarpon, it doesn't matter. If it eats a small fish, this fly would work fantastic for that. It comes in 5 colors. Like I said, they're so versatile that there's really not a fish out there you couldn't target with this fly. Definitely take a look at this as an all-purpose bait fish pattern. Next up is the raghead crab 2.0. This is a great example of flies that have been around for a long time, right? The original raghead has been in the industry for years and years and years. And as time goes by, things change. And this is a fly that needed those changes. We've heard from a lot of guides and a lot of destination anglers that the raghead crab is great, but it needed some changes. And we took all that feedback, put it all into one new version of the raghead. The first thing is we tweaked the body shape a little bit, not a ton, but we did tweak it a little bit to the recommendations. Next thing is, instead of using completely barred legs, we went with a white leg with a black tip, and we extended the length of the legs. So they're nice and long with those black tips. And then the thing that most people wanted more than anything else was the yellow eyes. So all of the colorways come with that yellow eye. We also upgraded the hook on this fly, so there really isn't a fish out there, whether it's you're in the middle of the Seychelles or in the Florida Keys, that you won't be able to land with this fly. This is going to be your new go-to raghead crab. Next up is the strong arm floating crab from Dave Skook. We are super excited about this fly. Everybody's familiar, if you've ever done any permit fishing, you've heard of the strong arm crab. And what Dave did here was basically just take that fly and turn it into a floating crab, again, to address that sargassum problem and the anglers wanting that floating crab pattern to target those permit in the weeds. He has the distinct strong arm claw, and then on the underside, it's a very impressionistic way to tie it. There's some chenille down on the shank of the hook that gives the fly a little bit of a sparkle. And then after that, he's wrapped a big, wide hen feather through it. So when it's in the water and those feathers get wet, it just wiggles and moves. Even if you don't even really move the fly at all of those feather fibers are just going to be moving. And then the top of the fly is, again, kind of a gurgler style, full foam, so it's going to float very, very well. He's got a nice 2 weed guard on there, so you can pull it over the top of the weeds. We are super excited about this. If you're a permit angler, want a floating crab, take a look at this one for sure. Absolute winner. Last fly we're going to take a look at today is the Umpqua spawning shrimp. The spawning shrimp is on every gear list of basically every flats angler out there. It is a fly that is essentially kind of a must-have. We didn't have really one that we were super proud of, so we just basically decided to design it ourselves. And what we did is we wanted a lot of movement out the front of the fly. So you've got craft fur, rubber legs, and midge flash for the antenna, all out the front. It's going to give you a ton of wiggle and move as you strip this fly. They're intentionally left a bit long so that you can modify it on the water. If you want the legs or the antenna shorter, you can just trim them. It's got the nice egg sac with quality mono eyes to give it that touch of realism. And then it's finished off with a small, sparse clump of Arctic fox. So when that fly is sitting on the bottom, barely moving, that Arctic fox is just going to wiggle in the water and give it a very realistic look without having to strip the fly super, super fast. Comes in the 3 colors, tan, olive, white, that you'd want for any situation. And then what we did on this one was we had 2 versions, a bead chain and a lead eye. So you can get it in 4 sizes in 2 weights. So there's basically not a situation on the flats where you can't find a color, a size, or a sink rate of this fly that won't suit your needs. Definitely put some of these in your box. Thanks everybody for taking the time to check out the video. All of these flies are either available now or shipping soon, so check them out at your local fly shop.